I'm here because I love working with people who work with animals. And I enable them to do something they've never done before, which is communicate with their clients in a way that keeps them out of the courtroom. I was a former litigator. I was an assistant district attorney in Westchester County, New York. I was an assistant inspector general for the state MTA, which is the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. So all I did was find out what you did wrong and tell you what you did wrong and defend or sue or do anything that I had to do because I love litigating. And about 13 years ago, I stayed home with my children and became a PTA vice president. And though I would have liked to have sued everyone I had to speak to then, I couldn't. So the skill set I took to the PTA didn't work for me. So I had to learn a new skill set, which was communicating with people who knew the best way to do something and not want to help. So they'd want to tell me how to do something, but not really want to help. So I learned this skill set that I didn't even realize I was learning at the time, which was to look them in the eye, listen to them, validate what they were saying completely, and then say to them, so how do we implement that? So how do we implement that? How do we do that? It's the word W-E instead of the word I. How do we? And it would take them aback going, wait a minute, I'm telling you this so you can do it. And I said, I could never have thought of it so eloquently as you did. So I'd like to have your input on how to put it together. Can I count on you to spearhead? And I learned while I was out of the courtroom that in fact there were ways to communicate differently than in the courtroom. Fast forward 13 years, my kids went through school, I decided I'm going to pick up my litigation pumps again. I'm just going to go back, I'm going to start taking cases, which I did. And I have a wonderful repertoire of people who fight about animals because I show Irish setters and long-haired dachshunds. And I love my colleagues who show animals. However, they don't necessarily communicate in a really good way. I love my veterinarian. She doesn't necessarily communicate in a really good way. I love my dog supply people. They don't necessarily communicate in a really good way, and they can't understand why they're losing clients. And it's all about avoiding that conversation. It's not about addressing that conversation. So today we're going to talk about the 3 tips I'm going to give you, which is address, keep your client, and avoid litigation. So those are the 3 things I'm going to cover. So I went back to litigate. I had numbers of clients. I was really busy because unfortunately in the dog show world, nobody talks to each other. They all just sue each other. And I realized that every weekend these people would have to come together and look at each other. And when I took the cases and I had this angst between them, I said, oh my God, these people are fighting about something that if they had the opportunity to have a conversation, they would. But there's no way to have a conversation because once I was hired, I told my client, no, don't talk to them. And once the other person hired an attorney, that attorney said, don't talk to them. And I realized I wanted to do something different. So 3 years ago, I decided to hang up my litigation pumps and start a mediation practice that simply helped people have that conversation they really want to have in a safe and confidential environment so that they can resolve the conflict in a way that speaks to them. Because you know when you're right, when you're wrong, what's going to work, what you're going to accept, what you're not going to accept, what you really want to do, and so does your other friend. And the bottom line is most of the time, my clients react in haste and repent at their leisure. I'm sure your mother told you that when you were young, right? React in haste, repent at leisure. So here you are, you've called an attorney, you've hired an attorney, you've sued your friend, and then you go, holy moly, if I had just taken time to take a deep breath, I might not have gone here. So I decided to enter the client communication facilitation practice that I'm in now. Not only do I help people mediate conflicts, which means that I come in as a neutral and help the parties have that conversation. I support both sides. The conversation is confidential and it is supported and reflected and everyone hears everyone else. My clients tell me that when they leave, they understand the other side better, they feel understood, and the most important piece is they all feel respected.